Every Wednesday, William Henry's Revelations bring you a powerful half hour of information at the cutting edge of reality. Information that you cannot find anywhere else in the world. And now, here's William.
Welcome, everyone. Scholars and seekers of the truth about Jesus are abuzz questioning the authenticity and significance of a much-publicized discovery by a Harvard scholar who reported that a 4th century fragment of a papyrus has provided the first evidence that some early Christians believed Jesus was married. In the fragmentary text, Jesus refers unmistakably to my wife. Another line reads, "She will be able to be my disciple." This seems to be a clear reference to Mary Magdalene. Karen King, a professor at Harvard Divinity School, announced the finding Tuesday, September 18, 2012, at an international congress on Coptic studies in Rome. Her paper and the front page attention it received in the New York Times is very much a topic among more than just Dan Brown fans. It has serious implications in Christianity. Dr. King's paper will appear in the January 2013 issue of the Harvard Theological Review. In an interview, King emphasized that this new discovery does not prove that the historical Jesus was married, as popularized by Dan Brown in the Da Vinci Code. King is an outspoken critic of Brown and his 85 million copy selling Holy Blood, Holy Grail inspired book and disagrees with the married Jesus theory. That would go against church doctrine. So for her to step forward with this papyrus is interesting, to say the least. She practically comes unglued protesting Jesus' nuptials. King presented the document at a 6-day conference being held at Rome's La Sapienza University and at the Augustinium Institute of the Pontifical Lateran University. And while the Vatican newspaper and Vatican radio frequently cover such academic conferences, there was no mention of King's discovery in any Vatican media yet. The fragment belongs to an anonymous private collector who contacted King to help translate and analyze it. Nothing is known about the circumstances of its discovery, but it had to come out of Egypt, where the dry climate allows ancient writings to survive, and because it was written in a script used in ancient times in Egypt, King said. Eminent scholars have come forward to verify the papyrus, the printing, the grammar, and the syntax. If true, the Jesus was married theory is potentially amazing and damaging to Christianity at the same time. Last week, it was Muhammad as a gay child abuser. This week, Jesus is married. What's going on? Here today to talk about the wife of Jesus theory and more is Tricia McCannon. Tricia is the author of Jesus, the Explosive Story of the 30 Lost Years and Ancient Mystery Religions. This is one of my wife Claire's favorite books about Jesus. Tricia's website, TriciaMcCannonSpeaks.com, is loaded with information about her book as well as her other investigations. I just caught her on her way out the door today to speak at the 2012 Star Knowledge Conference in Hendersonville, North Carolina, so we're very pleased to speak with Tricia today. Tricia, welcome to Revelations.
Oh, William, it's a pleasure. I'm so glad that we could work it out, and this is indeed an incredible discovery.
We're taking another look at Jesus, especially the question, was he married? Why is this such an important question, Tricia?
You know, I think it's a very interesting thing because traditionally what we have been taught within the church, and of course the church for many years until the time of the Martin Luther and the Lutheran Reformation, the church was simply Catholicism. And for a long time, ministers and priests of Jesus were actually allowed to be married and to have children and to have their own homes. And that, of course, was abolished by the Catholic Church because they found that when those ministers died, they wound up leaving their worldly goods to their wives and families, as you would expect.
That's not good from the church's perspective.
From the church's perspective, they were really interested in amassing power and money for many, many centuries and really dominating world religion.
So, Tricia, are you saying celibate and single Jesus is more of a financial question than it is a spiritual question?
Well, I think that certainly if the master that you're following taught a path that said you have to be celibate and single, or which he didn't, or portrayed a lifetime in which you were celibate and single, it would tend to reinforce the idea that by following the master, you would follow in his footsteps at a domestic level as well as a spiritual one. So I think that there was an acquisition of power and money that took place. And unfortunately, it didn't really serve the human beings that really sought to follow the path of spirituality and Jesus, as we can tell from some of the crazy things that have come to light in the last 10 or 20 years around men who had dedicated their lives to Christianity and to the church, and yet their own human natures, which include a sexual nature, really needed some kind of an expression. And if you don't have a healthy expression with a wife and a partner, then you might wind up with an unhealthy one, which is unfortunately what we've seen that has come to light in the last 10, 20 years.
The pedophiles. I heard a pundit on CBS News say that this papyrus, that Jesus is married theory, if true, and I believe it's true, will fuel the debate about marriage in general. What is marriage? Is it between a man and a woman? How do we define marriage? I think that could be a bit of a stretch linking it to that argument. The bigger question to me seems to be the question they did not raise on any of the websites or the news programs that I've seen that have referenced this article. If Jesus is married, then the next question for me is, did Jesus and Mary Magdalene have sex? And if so, did they somehow engage in sacred sex and perhaps open gateways to other dimensions through their sacred marriage?
Well, this is, again, a very big conversation. I want to remind our listeners that in the Jewish teachings, one was not even allowed to become a rabbi unless you were married. And the reason for that is because they understood that we have a physical nature, which includes a sexual, an emotional, a mental, and a spiritual nature. And how can you attain mastery if you have not addressed and balanced all of those natures? And so within the Jewish teachings at the time of Jesus, in order to have been proclaimed a rabbi, which he was, would have had to have been married. This was simple Jewish law.
No way around that one.
Well, they just didn't want their holy men out there philandering with a whole bunch of women. And so this was a way of solving it. Pick one woman, make a commitment, and, as many an intelligent, wise master has discovered, and we see this in the works, for example, of Yogananda. Yogananda's direct teacher was Sri Yukteswar, who was a householder and married, and his master, Babaji, was not. And Yogananda once said to Sri Yukteswar, which way should I go? And Sri Yukteswar said, both paths are worthy, both paths are spiritual. If you're celibate, of course, you give up this whole emotional and sexual component that is part of the sacred alchemy that allows us to, if you're with a healthy partner and is a healthy relationship, to work on ourselves and to achieve a level of spiritual union and oneness. If you choose a path as a householder, of course, you may be a master to all your students, but your wife may still ask you to pick the clothes up off the floor or do the laundry. So, they have their pluses and their minuses. But, when you bring up the whole idea of the hierogamos or the sacred marriage, there were many levels to this. At the physical level, it is the idea that we can love someone enough that we stop being selfish. We open our hearts, we fall in love with that person with all their beautiful divinity and all of their very human imperfections.
That's like, do they call that agape love in the Greek tradition?
In fact, that is the name for it, is agape love. And of course, there is also eros, which is the sexual love. And you can have both. And that's sort of the best of all worlds, is when you pick someone who is also working on their own spiritual alignment and a refinement process, you get an opportunity to grow together. And that means you wind up not always being selfish. It's not always about you. It's really about loving something beyond yourself. And really and truly, who we're loving is the divine, because the divine flows through each of us like a stained glass window. And that window is unique to every individual. But the divine resides within us, and through holding your wife or your husband in the way of an expression, let us say, of the divine feminine or the divine masculine, it allows them to grow into that space. The love itself literally reveals all of the shadows, and they get dissolved in the light of love. And this is really the higher path.
And so this is why, another perhaps reason why the Magdalene would be referred to as the hidden apostle or hidden disciple, because she's in the shadow, and she plays that all-important shadow role.
She was actually known as the apostle who knew the all. She was actually asked to carry the lineage of the inner hidden or Gnostic teachings from the word gnosis, which means knowledge, and to teach the inner teachings. And this was true really in all the mystery schools. There were outer teachings and there were inner teachings. So where Peter and the more traditional 3D apostles were asked to help establish the foundation for the outer church, where there would be a certain level of teachings, Mary the Magdala, or Mary the Great, was actually asked to head up the wisdom teachings of the inner churches. And this is a very interesting thing, because in recent years, some of the very deep hypnotherapy work of a man named Stuart Wilson and his partner Joanna Prentice, who are both British hypnotherapists, they've come out with a series of 5 really extraordinary books from people's hypnosis sessions. And the first one was the Essenes Children of the Light. I just recently got a chance to speak with Joanna on the phone, and they sent me their new book. And these books basically, this latest one is about the fact that after the resurrection, when the apostles, the male apostles, were scattered to many different countries and cities, that Mary was actually asked to head up this inner circle, and that they would meet periodically on an island in the Mediterranean where Joseph of Arimathea, who was very wealthy, had an estate. And Mary would present the conclave of the teachings, and they were simple but very profound, and she would say, the Master told us this. And then the whole weekend would be, that whole conclave of early bishops and Gnostic teachings would literally be devoted to discussing those primary principles. So these hypnotherapy sessions are from people who were back then, who experienced these conclaves, and the fact that she was actually intended to carry the inner lineage. And, of course, Peter wasn't really happy with this, because he felt like that there was strength in numbers. They should all stick together, that, they had enough opposition. Why, have 2 different lineages? Well, it wasn't 2 lineages. It was an outer tradition that anybody could get, which is kind of what we've gotten over the course of the last 2,000 years. And the inner tradition has been largely suppressed or lost entirely.
Well, Magdalene author Kathleen McGowan reported that Facebook has disabled the ability to post the New York Times story regarding Jesus' wife.
Oh, my God.
She says that attempting to post it gives you a message saying that it has been reported as, quote-unquote, spammy and has been blocked by Facebook. So it seems like on the one hand they're wanting to throw out this story, but then on the other you get the old world suppression along with it.
Well, we're back to the whole thing about control. And, certainly the church has done many wonderful things throughout the centuries, and there are a lot of wonderful people, very heartfelt people, who even today follow the teachings of Jesus and try to do it from a very pure level. And I grew up here in the Deep South. My family is very traditional Christian, evangelical. My older sister is married to a preacher. But I'm somebody who has been clairvoyant since I was young. I've been able to see angels and divas and fairies and elementals, and I had these angels come and teach me, and then masters began to come and teach me. And from the time that I was 19, where I was initiated by the Viragi masters from the Far East, who are very universal, and they basically teach that the 3 highest principles are love, sound, in the beginning was the word, and light. And they also teach that we as human beings have the ability, while we're still living in the physical human body, to be able to leave our bodies, soul travel, and to travel in these higher heavenly realms. So we don't have to take somebody's word for it and only find out when we die. So when I wrote the book about Jesus, the explosive story of the 30 lost years in ancient mystery religions, which is a mouthful, it's published by Hampton Roads, so you can just Google Tricia McCannon and Jesus and it'll come up, or it's on my website. I never intended to really write that book, but what happened is over the last 25 years I've become very initiated, let us say, in many of the ancient mystery traditions, from Native American to Egyptian to Celtic to Druidic to the goddess teachings to the Gnostic Christian teachings. And knowing this, I think what happened is I was writing another book, and I had written 200 pages in the book on Jesus, and the book had just become way too big. And I decided I'd just pull those 200 pages out. And, in fact, I was on the verge of doing that in order to make the book more manageable. And suddenly I had this very powerful experience where Jesus appeared to me in my office. And I have to say, I think he's awesome. He's incredibly, the amount of love, it just completely opens your heart chakra. And without any preamble, he said, I want you to write a book about my lost years and secret teachings. There has been enough war and bloodshed in my name. And to be honest, I was very resistant, but I finally agreed. And it took about 6 months before I began to work on this, to write the book, because I was 6 months in preparation. And as I think you know, William, I wound up getting access to some of the 570,000 documents hidden in the Vatican that no one's been allowed to see for over 100 years. I had books literally materialize on my shelf. I had people who came to my house with hidden records that had just come to light that Joseph of Arimathea had brought to England and buried there in the Glastonbury area. So it was literally 3 years of being in this miraculous set of experiences. And this book has over 1,200 footnotes and over 100 illustrations. And it was 3 years in the making. So, I didn't really, in that book, take on the whole conversation about Mary Magdalene because I felt like I had enough to do in addressing what the spiritual mystery schools taught and how Jesus' teachings reflect the teachings. Although, of course, we only have some of the teachings of Jesus. Many of his teachings have been lost. And
Tricia, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about some of those teachings. You'll be on the road here in September and October at various places around the U.S. where Revelations listeners can come and see you. So take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into some of those secret teachings, how they relate to 2012, and more about our time for truth. This is Revelations. We'll be right back. This is Revelations. We're continuing with Tricia McCannon. Tricia's book is Jesus, the Explosive Story of the 30 Lost Years in the Ancient Mystery Religions. Go to TriciaMcCannonSpeaks.com for details. Tricia,
yes.
We're in a time for truth. It's not surprising that a papyrus collector would show up at Karen King's office on the Harvard campus and say, hey, I've got a little bit of scoop for you here, Karen. I know you don't think Jesus was married, but take a look at this. And sure enough, she comes forward with this revelation of this papyrus. Jesus says, this is my wife, and refers to Mary Magdalene as possibly being his lost disciple or his actual disciple. We're listening to this. Why?
Well, first off, I think we should all honor Dr. Karen King, who is the professor of divinity at Harvard University. And I think it's wonderful that she was enough of a scholar and committed enough to trying to present the evidence and let people make up their own minds. So, let's just first thank her. And I'm sure, of course, that this would tend to make a lot of people feel like the Christian world is rocked at its foundations. But in truth, I do think that Dan Brown has set the tone for this, and it's great that his movies came out about this because I think it made a lot of people start asking deeper questions like, why shouldn't Jesus be married? And what's wrong with him being married? Does this mean he's not a godly man? Well, that's crazy. Does this mean that sex is not sacred? Well, there I think we come to it because I think at the heart of this is the fact that Christianity, either deliberately or non-deliberately, realized early on that, and I'm not talking about in the first century, I'm talking about the time that it got taken into Catholicism under Constantine and the centuries that followed. They realized that in order to have total power and control, they had to control the dogma. And so they altered certain aspects about the dogma to suit themselves and about the teachings. And they also realized that people actually could, one of the most powerful things that can sway us in the whole world and catalyze change is sex and love. And if you have love and sex together, my goodness, you actually can achieve very, very high altered states of consciousness. This means that men would die for love. as they have throughout the centuries. They would die for a woman. They would die for something other than the church. So how can you possibly take that away from men? Well, you tell them that women are dirty. You tell women that they should be ashamed. You make sexuality highly controlled in the sense that, okay, you can only have it to propagate the species, but other than that, you shouldn't even enjoy it. So you instill shame and blame and guilt in order for people to close their hearts down and not give their loyalty to their loved ones, but instead to give it to the church. And I think this is really at the heart of how our understanding of sacred sexuality got twisted into a blame, shame, guilt game, and it really doesn't serve anybody.
Tricia, let's move on to your travels here. I'm very intrigued by the upcoming Star Knowledge Conference you're going to be at. You're also going to be in Columbus, Ohio for the Universal Light Expo, and you're finishing off a year by going to New York. You've got, looks like, San Jose, California, and then you'll be in the Yucatan for December 21st. So let's just shift gears just a little bit. Talk about where we're at. 3 months countdown now to 2012, less than 90 days away. How are we doing?
It's quite incredible that we're even here. I don't know if other people feel it, but I think that there is an acceleration that is happening for people all around the planet, and it's never been more important for us to meditate and to ground, because as we come into alignment with the energies coming from the great central sun, it activates our sun. And as you know, our solar storms have been off the map, the EMFs flooding this planet. And one of the things that's been discovered in recent years is that light programs matter. And so the energies we're being bombarded with can accelerate our DNA, they can activate our pineal gland, and if we're grounded and we're in balance, good things happen.
And that's the gospel of 2012 right there, isn't it, Tricia? This pulse wave or channel of higher vibrational energy coming from the galactic core, the central sun, moves through the sun and awakens all on the planet, raising all to a higher level of vibration. I mean, that's Carlos Barrios, the Mayan elder. That's a 15-year-old kind of hypothesis of this time, and you look around, you talk with people, and they're feeling it.
Yes. However, what light also does is it brings to light our shadows. So that means all of our fears, all of our doubts, all of our addictions, whether it's money, power, prestige, jealousy, anger, issues with your family, all of these things are also coming up. And at a physical level, people are having dizzy spells because it affects the inner ear. There is affecting their sleep cycles, which has to do with the melatonin and the being released into the body. People are wanting to sleep or not able to sleep or waking up in the middle of the night. So there are a lot of physical effects that people are having. Again, I would say sit down and meditate. And one of the best ways to do this really is to sort of imagine that your higher self is about 2 feet above your head and pull down celestial light, whether it's white or gold or yellow. I mean, I could give a whole discourse on this, but the brief version would be to down ray it into all of your bodies, and you'll find that each one of those colors has a frequency that will bring you into stillness or clarity or balance. And you can just do this 10 minutes a day, and I swear you'll find that it creates a balancing and a shifting that's very positive.
Gathering. People are gathering these days, whether it be in webinars or actual events. People have a sense and a feeling of wanting to get together with like-minded and just share this experience. So
you're so right, William. And if you don't mind me just jumping in here, because I know we
have
limited time. I have just finished teaching an 8 or 9 week series on the Galactic Alignment 2012 here in Atlanta, and we were very privileged to have you come down to Atlanta and speak to kind of help kick it off. And I'm hoping to put these on as webinars. And so I don't have this on my current website, but hopefully in the next month or so we'll get this up, and people who do want to have this information will be able to. And they can certainly email me. That would be great, and I put them on a list, and then I'll send out a newsletter announcement saying, hey, okay, we've got the webinar series going. And this is, of course, one of the reasons why the Star Visions Conference or Star Knowledge Conference this weekend, the Universal Light Expo in Columbus, Ohio, is always the second weekend of August.
That's a huge event, too. It's the second weekend of October.
October. Oh, yeah, thanks for saying that. October. Yeah, it's been going on for 23 years, and there are about 5,000 people that come from 5 different states all around Ohio. In the beginning of November, I'm going to be in San Jose the first weekend teaching the spiritual mysteries, and then the following weekend in Santa Cruz speaking at the Visions bookstore. And then the first weekend in December, I will actually be in New York City teaching. And then this last thing, we talk about massive gatherings, is an event that's happening at the end of this year during the 2012 window, the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. It's called Synthesis 2012, and you can Google it. It's going to be an amazing. There'll probably be 50,000 people or more down in Chichen Itza.
How many?
They're expecting at least 50,000 people.
Oh, my God.
Now, only 2,000 can come to this particular conference, but this is the conference for the platform for the Mayan elders to finally come out and speak. Now, part of the prophecies are very interesting, is that there will be 9 star beings that will come to Earth during this time. Now, whether it actually happens that weekend or it happens, next year or whenever it happens, but I can't think of a better time if the star brothers and sisters want to show themselves, because, you're going to have a whole lot of people there waiting for them. One of the prophecies is that there will be a being called Nine Winds. And
9 Winds, yeah, Quetzalcoatl, sure.
Yes, and for
the rider of the serpent rope, wormhole.
Right, and for my money, Quetzalcoatl is probably Thoth, because the caduceus, which is the great feathered serpent, was always his symbol. So, we'll see. I think it's definitely one of the great places to be, and Michael DeMartinez, who is putting on this Synthesis 2012 conference, is planning to do huge teleconference links in Australia, in the Giza Pyramid in Egypt, and also in England, where Isuro Imoto from the Living Waters and Nassim Haramein are going to be holding an event, and perhaps even William Henry will be holding an event in Nashville. And
you have me inspired, Tricia. I'm looking into it today. I'll have an announcement here soon about likely doing something in Nashville, because in his 1976 book, The Keys of Enoch, Dr. J.J. Hurtak identified Nashville as one of 12 vortexes ringing the planet where special concealed knowledge will be revealed at the millennium. Then I actually had a shaman come up to Nashville from the Yucatan in 1998 who said, Nashville's the city of light. And I just am inspired by our conversation, Tricia, because I think we do need these. Oh no, I'm going to quote George Bush. I'm going to talk about points of light here. I think we need these portals to open at this time, and we need masses of people gathering at these power spots, be it Nashville, the Yucatan, wherever, Giza. There's a bunch of people going to Giza. I was invited on that, but decided to stay stateside. But all over the world, I think there's a new wave that seems to be rising up, a new momentum that is coming forward now that I'm feeling it. I think from now till December 21st is clearly going to be the time when every day, every moment, as much as possible, we want to stay focused on the light, on the positive.
Yeah, it's really, really important, because, it may be that on that day it's light, love, and harmony. It could be that there are pole shifts. It could be that star beings come. It could be that something else happens. One of the Hobie prophecies is that actually there's going to be a splitting of planes. And what I mean by that is that there will be an aspect of Earth that will begin to literally move into the 4th and 5th dimension. And those who have the right consciousness basically go with her. And those that are still committed to power games and extortion and mind control and greed and all of that stuff, they basically they'll wind up going to a 3rd dimensional planet. Now, whether or not this is a subtle shift that takes place, will we actually perceive it? We don't really know. We're in the mysteries. And, we've got this 2012 date, but the truth is we are in a 25-year window. And we are definitely going to have a pole shift. There is no doubt. Because if you look at the solar system, the things that are happening, which is a much bigger conversation, Uranus and Neptune have reversed their poles. The red spot on Jupiter is going the other way. The poles of Mars and Saturn and Earth are melting. So we will have a pole shift. But, it could be in 2017 or 2025. We don't really know what's going to happen, but I think it's an opportunity for us to come together as a human race, as spiritual beings, and to shift consciousness like the morphogenic field that Lynn McTaggart speaks about, the 100th monkey theory. The more of us that can hold this field, the more opportunity we have for Earth to move with all the sentient beings into the higher levels.
Let your light shine before men that they may see your good works. Add to that incredible statement by Jesus that this is my wife. Another line, she will be able to be my disciple. We're in a time of revelation, guys. Time for truth to be revealed, and we're thankful that Tricia McCannon was here to spend this time with us today. Please visit her website, which is TriciaMcCannonSpeaks.com. Her book on Jesus is, as I said earlier, my wife Claire's one of her favorite books about Jesus. You can visit Tricia's website. Tricia, we want to say thank you once again for this time today. We'll look forward to catching up with you soon. We're going to have to get back with you on some more details about the sacred marriage, about sacred living, and how to better prepare for December 21st, 2012. So safe journeys to you, and thank you once again.
It'd be my pleasure, and love to everyone out there, and I hope to speak to you soon, William.
Certainly. This has been Revelations. See you all next time.
Attending a William Henry presentation is unforgettable. Keep up with his schedule at williamhenry.net. You've been listening to William Henry's Revelations on Dreamland Radio. Next Wednesday, another cutting-edge revelation from William Henry.